Well, howdy, friends. Brian Flechsig of Mad River Outfitters and the Midwest Fly Fishing Schools, and welcome back to another episode in our mini-series on leaders. And yeah, we're almost getting there. We've got 2 or 3 more episodes to talk through some non-contact leaders. But in our last episode, we introduced to you a kind of a new concept that has been essentially developed and perfected by our great friend Flip Pallot. A new system of tying a simple 3-part contact leader. And just to review, the butt section is as long or short as you want, and the butt section is determined by the fly line. Not only the weight of the fly line, but also the taper and the actual grain weights of the fly line. And then the tippet is, of course, determined. The tippet will be approximately 18 inches and determined by the size of the fly you're trying to deliver, the size and the weight of the fly you're trying to deliver. And then, of course, it has to be strong enough to withstand the fight of the fish. And then your midsection, or what we call the transition, is approximately 18 inches, and it's going to split the difference between the butt and the tippet diameter-wise. Now, there's been quite a few questions, which we, of course, appreciate your questions. That's what we do for a living, is help people. Quite a few questions, which I'll get to after we hear from Flip himself. So we had a chance to sit down with Flip and talk about this somewhat, at least in our world, revolutionary, game-changing leader formula that Flip's been working on and that we are now teaching here in our schools, in our classes, and on our YouTube channel. So let's hear from the wizard himself, Mr. Flip Pallot. So Flip, you have so graciously allowed me to include your almost famous leader formula for...
I'm not sure it's all mine, but...
I accredit it to you, and you and I have been playing with it for 3 or 4 years now. We've been testing it extensively, and it flat out works. So, but like I said, you have so graciously given me permission to put this in my upcoming book, which is coming, and I even stole the title from you, The End of the Line. And so, but talk about how this 3-part leader formula kind of came about, maybe the benefits of it, and then I want to talk real quickly about, because many folks have a question on how we determine the proper butt section, and that's the key to this leader, because we all know that a good leader starts in the butt.
So basically, we grew up with leader formulas that were adopted from freshwater fishing.
Yes.
Basically from trout fishing. The people who know most about fly fishing and fly casting all came from that world. And so a lot of their things came from that world. All of their leader formulas did. Fly line tapers did. It took us a while to really understand that we needed different things for salt water.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that we discovered that we needed the most was longer leaders that performed well in conditions that were much tougher than sweetwater conditions. We struggled with it. We came up with a couple of variations over the years. I would say over the last 50 years.
Mm-hmm.
I would say, how long has it been that we've been messing with this?
It's been about 4 or 5 years.
4 or 5 years,
yeah.
something like that.
Yeah.
So what I began to think about was basically this. As the fly line loop unrolls toward its target and gets to the point where the leader is attached to the end of the fly line, what you hope happens is that all the energy from that unrolling loop gets transferred from the end of the fly line to and through the butt section of the leader.
So you want the same loop that you formed with the fly line to continue right down the butt section of the leader.
That's a good way to say it. You want the loop to continue in terms of its size and shape. But what's even more important than that is the energy. Because if, as this loop unrolls and comes to the end of the fly line and reaches the connection to the leader, if that energy is interrupted or lost, or part of it is lost, or a significant part of it is lost, then the distance between the end of your fly line and your fly is compromised. The leader just doesn't perform. It won't unroll and deliver the fly the way you want it to. So we found that these loops at the end of the fly line are two things. They're stiffer than the front taper of the fly line because they're doubled. To form the loop, the line is doubled.
Mm-hmm.
So this portion of the loop, where the line is welded to itself, is stiffer than this line here.
Correct.
So as this unrolls and reaches this spot, the transfer of energy is interrupted. You could argue, discuss how much it's interrupted or how much it affects, but it affects it.
Yes.
Well, now you're going to take a pre-made leader, pre-tapered leader that has another loop in the end of it, and you're going to loop it to this loop. So now this stiff spot is this long and is more significantly interrupting the form of the loop, and it creates additional weight.
Mm-hmm.
This portion of the fly line weighs twice as much as this portion because it's doubled. The monofilament, you could say the same thing. It's doubled in weight and doubled in stiffness. So as this loop unrolls and hits this additional weight, it throws the weight downward because of the weight, and it opens the loop because of its stiffness.
Right.
So the answer to something like that is to take your manly pliers and get rid of that loop. Now we can make a connection with the butt section, and let me see if I can figure out what the right butt section is here. So as a starting point, what weight line is this?
This is a 10 weight.
So my experience tells me that what I would like to have is a monofilament butt section that pretty closely approximates the stiffness and the bending characteristics of the end of the fly line so that the energy can seamlessly be transferred to the butt section. So here's some Rio 50, and I'm not familiar with it, but
It's basically Maxima Clear.
oh, is it? Okay.
Same thing as Maxima Clear.
So I'm going to take it and hold it next to the fly line, and I'm going to bend the two. I'm going to bend the two, and I'm going to roll the two, and it's pretty close to 50.
That's
This is 40. Oh, no.
yeah, that's
Yeah, this is 40.
You can see,
Yeah,
what I've found is it'll kind of fall off to the
It's
side.
exactly what it's doing. It's
Yep.
collapsing off to the side. So
Yep.
the 40 is a little light. The 50 may be a little heavy, but that's what we want. We want it to be a little heavier because don't forget that the speed of this front taper is coming off this big fat belly of the fly line. This thing, as it's unrolling, is really moving.
Right.
So when it hits this 50, you don't want this something there that's going to collapse. You want something that's going to receive that energy and carry it through to the midsection of the leader. All right, so the good thing is that if we have the same stiffness and we have the same weight, that energy is going to carry much further than let's say a pre-tapered leader. The pre-tapered leader, you don't know, it's just one taper from beginning at the butt section all the way down to the end of the leader. It's just one paper.
And also,
You don't know how much of that is butt section.
right. And my point is, not only do you not know how much is butt section and where the taper is, you don't know what the stiffness or diameter or mass of that butt section is that you're attaching. And you don't know. Is it going to match up? If you buy it off the wall at a fly
if you
shop?
buy it off the wall, no, you have no way to try it. You know, that little leader luggage thing. If I have, and I do, I carry this with me all the time because I have all spools. I have, this whole thing is full of spools that I can try to make sure that I find my, I got spools of leader material here and more spools inside. So I'll find the right material to make a butt section. And I like to make the butt section very long in most fishing situations. So typically our old butt sections were 6 feet. So my wingspan is about 6 feet, So that would be the length of my butt section. But because I'm able to use longer leaders with this formula, because I'm able to keep the energy going longer, I'll take another 3 feet of leader material. So now my butt section is 9 feet long, my butt section. That's usually the overall length of many leaders.
Right.
So this longer leader, it lets me fish much more aggressively. I don't worry about fish seeing me a fly line because I've got a total leader that's 12, 15 feet long.
In essence, with this method of matching the butt of your leader to the fly line, the butt section of your leader becomes a clear extension
tip
of the line.
It does.
Yeah.
It becomes a clear tip. So what I do to attach it is I take a stiffener, which could be a piece of wire, it could be a toothpick, paper clip, anything like that. And I take the end of my fly line, and what I'm looking for is a connection here between the butt section and the front taper that will be as little, unobtrusive, light, and secure as possible. And let me transfer that energy without that heavy, flat, stiff spot that all this double connection provides. So this, I use for this connection a knot called a snell. So I just pinch the end of my fly line and the stiffener together like that, both going in the same direction. Take one end of the leader, pinch it in there with all the rest. Then I go around to the far end of the butt section. I grab it, come around, make a big loop, but going in the opposite direction with this tag end. Just lay it in there like that, pinch the whole thing together, and then with this side of the loop, I'll make 7 turns around the stiffener. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then I pinch that together. I like to hold one end of this to my teeth like this, and I grab what will become the leader itself, or the butt section itself, and pull it through the loops that I've just formed until it becomes a perfect snell. The reason I use a snell instead of a nail knot is because one of the unique properties of the snell is that when you close it, it forms a curlicue inside itself with the fly line. So it's holding the fly line somehow in this perfect, looks like a
pigtail, yeah.
Inside the knot. You'll see it when I close this. Come in here real close and watch this. I just pull this off the end. I'll grab this first that's tagged in with my teeth and just close the snell. Now the knot is already formed, and you can see that that pigtail is trying to start. See how it's curling?
Yeah.
Now with my Manleys, I grab the back end or the tag end, and I like to put a little lube on it with saliva, and then I put it between my knees, and I use my legs to close that knot. it slipped out of the plier. But the knot is closed. I'm going to cut the tag end off the back real close with this Manley pliers. Yeah. And then cut the other end of the fly line off, same way, very close. So now, from the end of the fly line to the butt section, the only connection we have is about that long. It is a little heavier. It is a little stiffer, but it's tiny compared to a connection this long. And you'll be able to see, I crimped this a little bit, but you can see how this energy transfers. Now my butt section is 9 feet long, so I would make a midsection that, depending on how long I want the total leader to be, I would fade down to a midsection, started with 50, so I might go to a midsection of something like, let's say I'm fishing a 10-pound tippet or fishing for redfish. I would make my midsection probably 25 pounds.
Yeah.
Something like that.
And what we've been teaching in the schools is so your butt section is determined by your fly line. Your tippet is going to be determined by the fly and the fish.
And the midsection is determined by the tippet.
It splits the difference between the two.
Yeah.
So if you have such and such pound test, such and such pound test, or in kind of my way of thinking and teaching in diameter and diameter, then this is going to split the difference. So if this is 50 and this is 10, 25 is about right. If this is 27 thousandths, your tippet is 12 thousandths, you're 17 or 20 thousandths on that midsection.
And I would say that in a typical redfish situation, I'm very comfortable with a 12-foot leader.
So, and
12-foot leader.
I think on average, we've been saying approximately 18 inches for your tippet, approximately. Then your midsection, approximately 18 inches.
Exactly,
so whatever length of leader you want, if it's a 12-foot leader that you want, subtract 3 foot, and there's the length of your butt section. If you want a 15-foot leader, subtract 3 foot, your butt section is going to be 12 foot. Then 18 inches, approximately 18. You don't have to measure it.
Yeah.
Approximately 18 inches on the tippet, because IGFA says that we have to be 15 inches on your tippet. So this 3-part leader formula it's changed my entire way of thinking. It's changed my fishing, and I think you'll agree. I mean, you and I spent a week together in Apalachicola, Florida, throwing tarpon flies, and I think we had more fun just watching our leaders work than we did. And you went smallmouth fishing recently, and you applied this leader formula, and you were just it's so much fun to watch this leader turn over.
Well, it's scientific. I mean, it's high school physics, really. The energy continues down the length of the butt section. It begins to bleed off as you run it through the midsection. There's just enough energy left to go through the tippet and deliver the fly. It just works perfectly.
It's miraculous. It's changed everything. And then instead of having some rules that your butt section has to be 60% the diameter of your fly, well, that's not the case anymore. Well, it's what was it, 60-20-20 rule, and then there was
60-20-20-10.
Yeah. Well, none of that applies. It's a simple 3-part formula: butt determined by your fly line, tippet determined by the fly and the fish, midsection splits the difference.
That's the perfect way to explain it.
Well, thank you, Flip, for discovering that, for perfecting it, and for sharing it with me, and letting me teach it to the world. But also, we teach it in our schools as well. So if you'd like to come and learn more of this kind of stuff, you can join Flip and I here in Florida.
Florida.
At your house.
Florida.
In Rensetti, yeah, in Florida.
Florida.
All right, friends, so there you have it. And I just wanted to show you a couple of other things. A lot of folks have chimed in with questions on how we build this leader, how we put this together. And the first question that was coming up a lot was, how do you attach those sections? And that's an easy answer, and that's a blood knot. Okay, we're gonna attach the pieces, the butt to the mid, and then the mid to the tippet using blood knots. If you don't know a blood knot, there's a video that we've done that's linked right here. If you can't see that link, the link is down in the description. But the other question that has come up a bunch is, how do you determine the butt section? So again, let's have a look at this real quick. I want to show you a butt section that Flip and I were just talking about. Here's a butt section that's correct. And this is one of the ways that you can determine the proper butt section, is you're going to get this bell curve, and you want that butt section to be slightly stiffer than the tip of your fly line, okay? And so this is about right. That butt section is slightly overpowering the fly line. So that's a good bell curve, so that when the energy, or excuse me, when that loop is traveling down the fly line and then it gets to that junction, it maintains that same loop, and that loop will continue right on down the taper and into the tippet. So that's going to deliver a fly well and maintain your tight loop. Let's take a look. Here is a butt section that's way undergunned. Okay, look at this bell curve. That leader is not even strong enough to bend or put any kind of curve in the fly line. Okay, so if you have a butt section that's too thin or not stiff enough, which the combination of those two things equals the mass, but that's a mathematic video. But here's what's happening. The loop comes down your fly line, everything's going well, and then it hits this, and look, it just flops like a wet noodle. I mean, this is going to crash and burn 3 foot in front of the tip of your fly line. There's no way that this skinny, limp butt section, remember, a good leader starts in the butt, that can turn over an entire leader in a fly. It cannot physically be done. And for those that chime in and say, "Oh, I just add 6 pound," we've done countless leaders on why you can't attach tippet or 6 pound to the tip of your fly line. Not if you want to be good at fly fishing. Now here's one that's way too thick. Okay, this butt section is way too thick. Look at this. The monofilament doesn't even bend, and it just, look how it overpowers the fly line. I mean, that's ridiculous. That's actually gonna cause the fly line to crack or break right there. There's no way that the energy coming off, watch this. The energy's, okay, here's the loop. Oh, what a nice loop. You've practiced your casting so much, and you're so good at making nice loops. And then look at this. Look at that loop open right up. There's no way the fly line can feed enough energy to bend this fat, stiff monofilament to make a loop. I mean, this is actually simple physics, friends. So here's a way. I've answered tons and tons of questions, and I will always answer your questions. That's what we do. So you can send those questions over to admin@matterofroutfitters.com, or better yet, pick up the phone and give us a call. But here's a way that you can do this. This is a brand new fly line, and of course, if you're building a contact leader, okay, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to chop off that loop, because I don't ever need to change leaders when you're using this method and this system. So I chopped off the loop. And now I can take, this is a 6 weight, okay? And this is a new Rio Gold Max, which won't be out until February of 2025. But this is a full size heavy, meaning that it's grain weight wise, a 6 weight is actually equivalent to a 7 weight. I mentioned that earlier, but you need to know, you need to know what your actual grain weights are. Because a lot of fly lines that say 6 are actually 7. They might be an 8, or in the case of like an outbound short from Rio, they might be a 9 weight. And that's going to dramatically change, which is why so many people email me or call and they say, hey, what butt section do I need for a 6 weight? Well, I got to know what the taper is, and I got to know, and then we really need to know what the grain weights are, which if you tell me what the taper is, I'll probably be able to, I can decipher what the grain weight is. But anyhow, so a 7 weight is typically going to take somewhere around 20 thousandths diameter of a stiff material. And of course, you all know that I like to use Maxima Clear, also Rio Saltwater, and then I'm starting to use quite a bit of Cortland Mono. But what you can do is you can do that kind of bell curve test. You can lay the two pieces side by side and give yourself about 4 or 5 inches to play with and do the bell curve test. And I can see here from this bell curve test that this 20 thousandths Maxima Clear is slightly stiffer than the fly line. Okay? It's making a slightly larger bell curve, but it rolls pretty well. Now, if I was to go to something much heavier, let's say here's some 30 thousandths, and I do the bell curve test, you're going to be able to see that they don't stay together. It falls off to the side. Flip and I kind of talked about that in that video. You can see that it is much stiffer than the fly line, and it falls off to the side. Hopefully you can see that. And also, when you do this little flex and the bell curve, you can see that the curve is much bigger with this thick stuff than the fly line. So therefore, I know that 30 thousandths is way too big and stiff. And then if I took something way too thin and did the bell curve test, again, what you're going to find is you're going to find that it falls right off to the side. It won't stay kind of congruent or cohesive. I'm not sure if those are the right words, but it won't stay in line. And then you'll see a much different bell curve. So you can do that bell curve test. Eventually we do a kind of the culmination of this series is going to be an announcement about the book that we've been promising you for quite some many years. But it's finally coming to fruition, and we're going to get that out. And we're going to have some charts in there. But just to give you an idea, with a 5 weight or 6 weight, I'm usually somewhere around 17, 18 thousandths. 6 weight, I might be in the ballpark of 18 to 20 thousandths. If it's 2 line weights heavy, it's probably 22 thousandths. Most of my 8 weights and 9 weights are 22 to 24 thousandths. If I go up to a 10 weight, it might be 25 to 27 thousandths on the butt section. But remember, it has a lot to do with the monofilament, the stiffness of the monofilament also. If I'm using 17 thousandths in Maxima Clear for my 5 weight, since the Cortland monofilament is more limp, I might have to go to 20 thousandths on that to get the right bell curve. And so you can do this little bell curve test and get a good idea of how the tip of the fly line matches up. So you don't have to be tying knots and testing out different things. So you can do that, or again, this is what we do for a living. I tell people all the time, they say, well, how do I know what to use for my butt section? Well, one of the ways is that you can email Mad River Outfitters. Really, you can email us or call us. That's what we do for a living, friends, is help people. And we also know fly lines. I mean, fly lines are actually our number one selling category of products. We sell almost as many fly lines as we do flies, so we know fly lines. And we can tell you what diameter and what brand to use based on the type of leader that you're trying to build. It's really pretty simple, and we're more than happy to do it. We count on you for being a part of what we do. So anyhow, I hope that helps. So in determining what butt section you should be using, you can try that little bell curve test to get an idea if they kind of stay together and they have a very similar, or the monofilament is slightly stiffer than the fly line, you know you've got a good match. If that loop falls off to one side, like I just showed you and like Flip and I talked about, then you know it's not a good match, okay? And then the second way is to literally shoot me an email or pick up the phone and give us a call. So anyhow, I hope that clarifies. I hope that you'll give this contact leader a try. Remember, this is not necessarily really a dry fly leader per se, traditional dry fly leader. It's not a nymph leader whatsoever. It's a contact fly fishing leader for saltwater, for bass, pike, muskie, streamers, et cetera, et cetera. In our next episode, we're going to talk about that same contact leader, building it for sinking lines and sink tips and intermediate lines. And then we'll get to our nymph leader formula. Then we'll get to dry flies. And then by that time, we should have an announcement about a book. So I know it's a big promise, but hey, you know, COVID messed us up. We were almost ready, but I'm glad we didn't put out in 2020 because I've learned a lot since then. So it's going to be a better book. We appreciate you guys waiting. So anyhow, send those questions over to admin@madriveroutfitters.com. Hop on over to our website, register for our monthly newsletter. Hit the subscribe button. That really helps us out. Hit the like button. That makes us feel good. And stay tuned. We've got tons and tons of fly fishing content coming your way. Thanks for being here, and thanks for watching.